Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we're usually watching a TV show week to week, providing you with some camaraderie and context along the way. In today's episode, we will be discussing the season finale of the very popular Dexter Resurrection series, an episode called And Justice for All. Sona will be joining me for a conversation. We actually vacationed together this past weekend, and she and her husband did not have a chance to have seen last week's episode of Dexter, but I did find out from her that she's all caught up and we'll be discussing the finale later this very episode. But while I have this space to myself, a little bit of show news and a mini review as well. Okay, show news number one. Of course, we continue to discuss Alien Earth here on the podcast, Darren and I, and a very popular series as well, and the audience only seems to be growing. 3 more episodes to go, so if you haven't caught up, now's the time, as the story went back to space in a flashback episode and now back to Earth again in this upcoming week. So if you're behind on that, do catch up and do follow along here on the podcast. And of course, Sona and I kicking off our next show or coverage, the series Task on HBO. So Task is HBO's latest prestigious TV offering. This comes from the creator of Mare of Easttown, Brad Inglesby, and it's a story of a character played by Mark Ruffalo, who has suffered some tragedy in his personal life. He's a detective, but is pretty much out of it, no longer wants to be involved in more high-stress police work, and is dragged into a task force, where the title comes from, by his boss, Martha Plimpton, to investigate a rash of burglaries of drug stash houses around the Philadelphia area. If this sounds familiar, by the way, very similar to the book and series based on this, at least in plot, to the show Dope Thief that we partially watched here on the podcast. And these drug thefts are being orchestrated by a character played by Tom Pelphrey from Ozark, who's getting rave reviews in this particular show. And he's a working class guy, a garbage man, and this is why he has been able to case these locations, and apparently also has someone in his family that was involved in the drug trade. So tangentially involved enough to know where these places are and have a little insight, and is able to get in and out of these locations, stealing these drugs and money, very Robin Hood-like from these drug dealers. But once again, similar to the setup of Dope Thief, these drug heists are potentially lighting the fuse on a powder keg among the drug gang itself, and all these 3 things are in tension with each other. And these 3 characters, a third character which I haven't mentioned here, which is the drug lord himself, who seems to be a real loose cannon. So can the police rescue this guy, discover the perpetrators of these crimes before this drug war escalates and potentially gets all these people killed, these working class folks? And like Mare of Easttown, there will probably be a lot of exploration of these broken working class family, their dynamics, and this cultural milieu of this outside of Philadelphia, which Brad Inglesby likes to explore, of this booming city and then these suburbs and even rural areas outside, and this strange mix of cultures all upon each other, which he also explored a little bit of in the TV movie Echo Valley, a modestly successful film that came out this summer, which we also discussed here on the podcast. So I love this cast. I love the style of the show, if you've seen the trailer with that Guns N' Roses song. And I like what Inglesby was able to bring to the murder mystery Mare of Easttown, and I hope he pulls off a similar trick here with this new series. Early reviews have been very positive, so I have high hopes. Another positive here is a 7 episode season. A big fan of these seasons that have been significantly truncated. I love that this has become the new, we see even on Netflix, 5 episode seasons, 7 and 8, and even 9. But even a 10 episode season nowadays seems a little long. And I used to always get very frustrated. Why don't they just tell the story in the size that it needs? We don't need to have 10 episodes for every season. Not all stories require that. And it seems indeed that seems to be the case, that we're seeing shorter and shorter seasons. And here's an example of it, just 7 episodes long. By the way, HBO also last week just announced, finally, a full year delay on this, that the It, Welcome to Derry, I guess it is, spin-off series, which also I find very intriguing, not only that it extends, or is basically a prequel to that It mythology, but starts to incorporate other story elements from other Stephen King stories as well. And it appears that this will be an anthology, so that we'll discover new characters over a different period of time from season to season, if they extend this beyond one season. So definitely intrigued by that. I grew up reading Stephen King, so very curious to check that series out. And that will begin immediately 1 week after Task wraps up, right before Halloween, of course, very appropriate. And we will probably be covering 3 different shows, maybe even more. This September is pretty packed. After Alien Earth wraps up, the same weekend and on the same network, FX, there will be a new detective series on FX starring Ethan Hawke, and from Sterling Harjo, the creator of the excellent FX half-hour series Reservation Dogs. And that same week, a new Apple TV Plus thriller, The Savant, starring Jessica Chastain, loosely based on a true story of an FBI, I believe, operative who infiltrates white supremacist terrorist organizations in the United States. And Slow Horses comes back that very same week. Sona and I will probably discuss the finale of Platonic as well. And we're just coming out this very week of the start of the Fall Movie Festival season. And these films will start to come out. A lot of them are on Netflix, by the way. Netflix has 5 or 6 different award contenders that will be rolling out over the course of the next couple of months, including a movie I'm going to discuss here shortly, Highest to Lowest, not premiering at these festivals, but premiered at Cannes, actually. But the film festival season is the kickoff to the awards discussion for the rest of the year. I'll be watching movies and dropping mini reviews in here as well, trying to get you ahead of the curve on some of those films coming out. And I'll even be attending a film festival, the Montclair Film Festival, that Stephen Colbert and his wife, primarily his wife, sponsor right by my home. And a lot of these films that are winning awards now at Venice and Telluride will actually be shown there as well. And I'll be watching what I can and getting you those early reviews. So all of that is coming in the next month or two. A packed fall, my favorite type of year for new prestige series, for new movies, the award season at the end of the year, all great stuff coming. If anything, it's just so consolidated, I can't get around to watching everything. Okay, one last thing before I get into the breakdown of the episode, a mini review of Highest to Lowest. So this is Spike Lee's latest film, and starring a frequent collaborator of his, Denzel Washington, of course, one of the biggest stars. And Spike Lee had an iconic career. You think about him becoming this darling in indie cinema, getting She's Gotta Have It produced at a very low budget. And that becomes a huge hit. And more importantly, leads to a renaissance, at least decade-long, maybe multi-decade renaissance of young black filmmakers. And then has a really fascinating career, pretty much all the way from She's Gotta Have It all the way through to the 25th Hour, or like a 20-year run of films that are very uneven. There's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't quite work for me, but always fascinating. And of course, an incredible highlight of Do the Right Thing, still incredibly powerful film even today. Beautifully made. And the big budget Malcolm X, which of course teams him up with Denzel. This is like the second time I think he worked with Denzel already at that early in his career. Gets an Academy Award nomination, Denzel. It's also a big hit at movie theaters. And he also starts making these really powerful documentaries, whether it's For Little Girls or whether it is his investigation of the fallout of Katrina, When the Levee Breaks. And then at some point, pretty much after the 25th Hour, which interestingly was pretty successful considering modest expectations of that, and the subject matter exploring the immediate aftermath of 9/11, things became much more uneven. He made a pretty terrible film that flopped called She Hate Me. But then a couple years later follows it up with his biggest grossing film of all times, Inside Man, a pretty straight ahead heist thriller, terrific film, by the way, very fun. Maybe not as personal as you feel some of his films have a much more personal connection, but maybe a little impersonal, but very well made. A lot of fun to watch that, and just a clever plot as well. And then things get very variable. Most of his films are not successful either with critics or don't make money in movie theaters, or usually a combination of both. He is still making documentaries. He's shooting Broadway shows. For example, he shot the final performance of Passing Strange. He also won an Emmy Award, I believe, for directing American Utopia, the filmed version of David Byrne's very successful Broadway show. So pretty eclectic as he's become an elder statesman. Oh, and of course, after that pretty uneven patch, huge comeback, makes Black Klansman, wins an Academy Award for the screenplay. And he's done very little since then. He's worked with streamers now. He has this Netflix film he made, The Five Bloods, which didn't really work for me, to be honest. Not to want to digress on that, but there was supposed to be a de-aging effect on the actors, which they couldn't afford in the 11th hour. So they have them play their younger selves without the de-aging. And it just weird. I mean, I know that's just the byproduct of the project, but that show, speaking of Highest and Lowest, that film has such great moments in it, and then it really doesn't quite work, which, by the way, can be said of a lot of Spike Lee's work, I have to say. And that's the last thing he directed back in 2020 until now, which this film, Highest to Lowest, a remake of Akira Kurosawa's High and Low, played at Cannes and got very strong reviews. Those reviews have seemed to, over time, that rating has seemed to erode over time. But I was so excited for this because, and maybe part of my disappointment with this, and just prefacing all of this with the fact that I didn't really love this film, might have been because of this anticipation. Oh, it's a comeback. It's a genre film. He gets to, I think of like The 25th Hour. I think of Inside Man. I think about where he is playing with genre and then can still put his ideas in there, but in this framing device of a genre exercise, which has worked for him in the past. You have Denzel Washington here again. And by the way, High and Low, the original Kurosawa film, another thing that probably hurts this project, but made me excited for it, is one of my favorite Kurosawa films, one of my favorite films of that entire era. So the setup of, and by the way, the Kurosawa film, available on HBO Max, do check it out if you haven't already seen it. It's 70 years old, but it does not feel, and it's in Japanese, but it does not feel old at all. And that's why it's been remade here. And if you hear this, I find this really fascinating, by the way, that here's a story 70 years old, an adaptation, by the way, of an American crime novel, but set in Japan in the 1950s, following the war, of course, this rise of capitalism that has, in many ways, alienated Kurosawa from the old culture. This modern capitalism had come in and washed away the old culture of Japan, and obviously they needed something, considering their defeat at World War II had kind of broken the country to a large extent. But he was making a clarion call there that, Kurosawa that is, that the country was maybe surrendering too much of itself to this fixation on capitalism and growth. And the reason I bring that all up is because these are themes that how many movies in the past 2 or 3 years have that exact same theme. So this has been around, this fear of the depersonalization that comes with rapid capitalistic growth. And it's what we see in High and Low. It's what we see in so much of the cinema of the 70s. It's what we see in Parasite happening in South Korea. And it's, of course, what we see in so many of the films we've seen in the past few years. This critique of modern capitalism. And it's been going on for decades. Anyway, in the original film, the setup, same for this film here. We have an incredibly rich master of the universe. He is in the midst of a huge change in his career. He needs a large amount of money to make a corporate pivot. I'm keeping this vague, of course, because the cultural milieu of both is very different, but the setup is the same. He needs access to his cash. And at that moment, he has just dropped off his son, much younger son in the original version than this one. He's a teenager in this one, maybe even college age. He gets a call that someone has kidnapped his son. And the kidnapper wants a very high ransom. And all of a sudden, all his plans for that money are out the door. But of course, what is he going to do? His son's life is on the line. And then this is given away right away in the new film. But I'm going to keep it vague in case you have no familiarity with this. But I'll just say that in the original film, probably a third of the way through the film, there's a revelation. And that revelation hit me so hard when I saw that film because it changes all the stakes up to that point, and of course, the rest of the plot as it unfolds. And it makes you ask yourself big moral questions about now all of a sudden, all the calculations we were just making about, well, this is such a huge amount of money, but of course, what else can we do? And suddenly we start to backpedal on our decisions, as does the character in the film. And it makes you question yourself. Like, it makes you complicit in this love of money above all other things. So it's really powerful. And then, of course, in that original film, it's probably right at the halfway point that the story shifts to the kidnapper. And then we see his backstory. And he is high and low. He is at the, we're not in the most posh living condition imaginable. We're in the lowest of the low possible living conditions in this modern Tokyo. I think it's set in Tokyo. So now we have this huge whiplash of the opulence of the lifestyle we saw before to this low lifestyle. And like the lower depths or something, this point of view from this lower strata, and now being on the opposite side of this net closing in on this perpetrator. So it's a brilliant film, and once again, probably problematic to compare it to this one because of all these expectations, everything I just said, and how much I like that original film. I was really disappointed with the decisions that were made early in the going of Spike Lee's film, Highest2Lowest. But I do say, if you start watching this, is available on Apple TV Plus as of Friday, this day that I'm publishing this episode. So you'll be able to watch it easily at home. If you are a fan of Denzel, if you are a fan of Spike, if you are curious about this project, in my opinion, I think that over the course of the film gets better and better. Everything that tightly couples it to the Kurosawa film weakens it, and it just doesn't hold up in comparison. And this isn't just because I'm comparing it to that film. I just think there's some bad filmmaking early on in the film. There is this score, this incessant and not very interesting score that plays constantly in the first third of the film or so. And it's this very light jazz. I mean, he uses jazz in a lot of his films. His dad, one of the composers of films before. But this is not more of that style of jazz. This is a much more generically soft jazz type. And it plays constantly, and it doesn't add anything thematically. And worst of all is the fact that the setup of this film is that Denzel is this master of the universe, a Barry Gordy-like figure who was like the voice of R&B, discovered all of a generation of R&B. And I should say that there's something that's very commonly happening now. There is a corporate consolidation, a large venture capital group that wants to buy the catalog of artists and their publishing rights. Something, of course, that we hear in the headlines all the time now, very common, that artists are selling their masters and their catalogs for huge sums of money to these venture capital groups. So that's what's about to happen here. He might get richer than ever, but of course he is constantly, and this is a little irritating as well in the film to me, sounding off about, the culture today. But there is an interesting thematic point here that I think Spike is making as well, that he is saying these giant corporate companies, they're sucking all the life out of our art. And of course, meanwhile, he's making this for Apple TV, probably getting paid more than he ever has before for this project by a giant technical company that is not in the business traditionally of making movies. They're making technology. A similar parallel to the critique being made inside of from within the music industry in the movie itself. And yet he is doing exactly that thing. He is selling out, basically. If this is a film about the dangers of selling out, and is money worth more than your soul in a way? And if that question is there, it is not very well addressed because, once again, this is coming from Apple TV. So it's like the call is coming from inside the house, folks. And there is an interesting conversation to have there, but the film itself doesn't seem to want to interrogate it that much. Okay, so everything I'm saying is how this first third of the film doesn't work. For me, it doesn't work, right? If you're vibing with the film as you're watching this first third, you're going to like the rest of it. Because what does work is very different than the original film, is that after that third and that same plot reveal comes, and by the way, that's another criticism I have. I mean, the characters here in that first third, discovering the son's been kidnapped and the interactions these folks have with each other, and especially the mother. I don't know this actress very well. I don't think she gives a very good performance. Then again, she's probably giving the performance that she's asked to. Seems to just kind of be like, oh no, it's terrible. My son got kidnapped. Oh, that's awful. The tone of that is crazy. But it doesn't really matter because they speed run through the whole revelations that come similarly. Things aren't quite what they seem. Once again, I don't want to spoil this in case you're not familiar with the story. And then once again, the stakes are changed at that moment. Once we get past that really rough patch, oh, by the way, Jeffrey Wright is in here. I haven't even brought him up because he is one of the leads, but so underused. And I love Jeffrey Wright. You can, like, I think the way like Wes Anderson, for example, has used him in his most recent films is so brilliant. And I get to love seeing these different shades of Wright becoming a more and more interesting performer later in his career. I think he's kind of underused here. It really feels like they're like, oh, we can get Jeffrey Wright for this role. Let's get him. But then they really don't have anything for him to do. So definitely underused in my opinion. Another bit of a disappointment. But we get past that early stretch of the film. And then we have a ransom exchange with police hot in pursuit. And this is just a lot of fun. This is, Spike just playing in genre and doing a really good job of it. He could probably just do these type of things on a regular basis. He could work more often if he wanted to just do these type of things. And he seems to have a lot of fun in these different locations in New York during the Puerto Rican Day Parade, activities in the city, which of course have people everywhere in the street, which is part of the way that this exchange gets derailed, no pun intended. And then eventually we get around to Denzel in the final act of the film getting to be the like avenging wronged rich guy, which maybe this is like the opposite of what we've been seeing culturally to make this master of the universe character, not a buffoon, but actually the hero in the end of the piece, and the confrontation with this kidnapper eventually, which I think is right in the credits, but I won't reveal it. Not a professional actor, but does a pretty good job. Definitely has some charisma, especially when he's angry. There's like some thing he taps into that is very powerful. And the last third of the film is straight up genre, but it's fun. It's funny. There's a lot of comedy in these last sequences. So it definitely gets better. In my Letterboxd review, I said it goes from lowest to highest in the trajectory of the film because, man, I was really struggling through that first section of the film, but then vibed with it more and more as it went along. But I have to say that maybe this film thinks it's saying profound things. I think it's pretty low stakes. I don't understand why critics have gone so gaga over it. I do not expect that this will be in the award conversation at the end of the year. But the most straight ahead parts of the story are well directed, especially the action sequences. And the performances are strong. Denzel is very charismatic, as he always is, but I don't think he's going to get a nomination or anything for this. But it is easy to watch. And like I mentioned, if you start watching this and you're not vibing with it, hang in there. It gets better. But honestly, what I really want to recommend is if you're not averse to a Japanese film with subtitles, you got to check out High and Low. And it's available on HBO Max. And I know you got HBO Max because you watched The White Lotus and you're going to watch Task. So I know you have it. So it's right there for you. All right, let's get into the breakdown of the season finale of Dexter Resurrection, Justice for All. Before Sona joins the conversation, here's a quick plot breakdown of the episode. On the previously on, what are the things they want us to pay attention to? They want us to pay attention to staying alive. That should have been the title of this final episode, by the way. They paid probably a blanket fee to use this Bee Gees song, and damn it, they're going to use it in every episode they can. They also want to remind us that Claudia noticed the different length sleeves on her partner's coat. Jacket, I should say. And of course, the episode has culminated. Angel has died, killed by Leon Prater. Dexter's trapped in the vault and very angry about it with Angel's corpse. We pick up, of course, immediately after that, Prater. That was unbelievable. I just killed somebody. Amazing that he's been murder edging himself all these years and never actually killed anybody. The yummy, yummy feeling in his tummy right now isn't finally fulfilling his destiny to be a serial killer. Not yet a serial killer, but he's working on it. Charlie thinks all of this was stupid. You killed a cop, and the building is full. Your mansion is full of cops at this moment. Prater's plan is to keep Dexter locked up in there. That's it. That's his plan. Not a great idea, especially since he has a cell phone. A lot of sloppy work here, Charlie. You didn't even check the guy, Angel's pockets, and starving this guy to death, or I guess dehydrating him for a few days. Seems like not the best plan. Dexter gets one more ghost visit, of course, from his brother, Brian. Dexter, once again, question mark here, have to ask Sona about this. Are we seeing more and more evidence that he's not a psychopath, regardless of the fact of how easy it is for him to murder people? And of course, we also see that double side of this coin, I should say, in this particular episode, because he does seem to get a lot of joy in getting this, I guess, in his mind, justified homicide by the end of this episode. But Brian says you're lying to yourself. You're using fake dad to convince you that you're not the sociopath or psychopath that I know you are. But he's like, I feel it. I feel it in my chest. Angel dying has hurt me. Again, not sure this is true psychopathic behavior. But I guess that's a conversation point to explore later. Brian does remind him that he could have been with people like himself, killed his brother, killed these other psychopaths to protect people like Angel. He says, I'm glad I killed you when I had the chance. By the way, Brian not dead in the series of books. Just to point that out in case you plan to read these books at some point in the future. Dexter's trying to figure out any way to get out of this room while Ghost Brian taunts him. But of course, Quinn calls on Angel's phone. Harrison, of course, is in Angel's phone and Dexter makes a call. Pretty funny sequence here. Harrison's hooking up with his girlfriend and he keeps ignoring the call, assuming that it's Angel. But of course, it's not Angel. Pretty funny reaction when Gigi realizes she's just made the sexual comment to Harrison's father. Dexter needs Harrison to come. Harrison, of course, reaches out to his friend who made the offer for him to come work with him at Prater's event. And conveniently, Dexter's like, oh, hey, all those research files, they're not digitized. They're physical, and they're all here in the room with me. Dexter starts looking through these files. There's got to be the code here somewhere in this folder. We find out that Charlotte's real name is Charlie, last name Brown, Charlie Brown. Wow, unfortunate to say the least. Dexter's first guess at the 8-digit code is the date of his parents' death, which is his origin moment. So he's waiting for Harrison to come outside that door and enter the code. Pretty weird. I mean, maybe this was addressed and I just didn't notice it, but he hosts this gala every year on the year his parents died. I mean, I'm sure this is part of his biography, so people are aware of it. Pretty morbid, even though maybe presentational. It's like, well, this is where he became the person he is now. Little do they know that they're talking about his fixation on serial killers. Harrison has arrived. He's using the phone, FaceTiming, so his dad can watch and guide him to the penthouse. Claudette arrives, and she makes another commentary that the sleeves are still uneven. Good thing they seeded that in the previously on. I would have forgotten that detail. A very important plot point. Interesting that Prater is right next to Harrison and doesn't recognize him when they're a couple of feet apart, but later on we'll pick him out across the room. Harrison eventually is able to get to the staircase that leads to the penthouse by telling one of the security guards that one of the waitstaff is publicly high, throwing his friend under the bus. This is unresolved, by the way, by the end of the episode, but he's got a lot of explaining to do to his friend later on tonight. It's not the first time he's gotten this guy in trouble, by the way. Dexter gets to the penthouse and is able to pick the lock, but of course, Charlie's right there waiting for him. She heard the jiggling of the lock. She goes, it's interesting you're risking your life for a man you barely know. And this is the first important interaction here between these characters. Dexter tells Charlie, look, your employer has been keeping tabs on you and is going to blackmail you probably. So you're always going to be under his heel. This is the final straw for her. She's like, I'm out. I'm not doing his dirty work anymore. And he says, by the way, my iPhone can airdrop this file to a bunch of police officers. I don't know who these people are, but there's a lot of airdrop options on my phone right now. And there's a lot of cops here in the building. This room should be way more protected against any kind of wireless communication, by the way. Some little copper wiring, all you would require to make this place much more hacker-proof. He says, I will not release these files if you let my son go and you release me. Her plan is, I'll let your son live. You're still going to die in there. If anything happens, I will track down your son and kill him. And you know I can do it. You've seen my file. By the way, tick-tock, 5% left on that battery. I'm not sure you could FaceTime for this amount of time with a 5% charge. Dexter has just enough time to give him that 8-digit code. But wait a second, it's the wrong 8-digit code. He remembers at the last second. It must actually be the prisoner record for the original serial killer who killed his parents, Prater's parents. And then in the final moments, Harrison's waiting. Wait, Dad, what do you want me to do? Which one? Which code? And the battery dies. Harrison pushes the button and it's the right code. He tells Harrison right away, you got to get out of here. Go through the servants' quarters. Be as unobtrusive as possible. I got some cleaning up to do. He wants those files of all those other serial killers. Of course, this will be setting up the next season. Dexter lost his thumbprint, so he can't go through the main entrance. Harrison has to find his way the same way he came in. And Dexter somehow miraculously can clean up all this stuff. He finds one of the backpacks, which is another souvenir from one of these killers, puts all the serial killer folders into it, and he's able to do like wipey. Now, he's been like grabbing stuff, throwing it around the room, and somehow they've been cleverly able to, or I should say he is good enough at this that he has removed all his fingerprints. I'm suspicious that there are no fingerprints of his at all in this room, but I guess we'll buy it for now. Harrison's working his way out, and Charlie confronts Prater. She says, I'm quitting. I saw what you did. You compromised me in those photos, and you're going to let me go because I have a lot of dirt on you, and I can easily blow up your world too. So mutually assured destruction. Again, I'm taking my mom, I'm leaving, and you're never going to contact me again. Hilariously, just as Harrison's about to make his escape, he runs into Claudette and her partner. He bumps into the waitstaff that makes a ruckus in the middle of this event. Prater's on stage, angry still about Charlie. He jumps behind a bush, is hiding behind this bush for quite some time, I would assume, through most of these proceedings. Dexter does eventually find his thumbprint. Angel was holding it for him. Harrison could have just waited another moment to make his escape, but instead he hops out a little too early. Prater sees him, now recognizes him for some reason. He goes to see the security guard, tracks down where Harrison is currently in the building, and tells the security guard, conveniently for what's to happen next, to turn off all the security cameras. He's like, what? Okay, sure. You're the boss. Oh, and by the way, give me your gun. He intercepts Harrison and he's exiting through one of the alleyways and calls Dexter from Harrison's phone. I guess Dexter's found his phone and his belongings somewhere and says, yes, he's still alive, but you're going to meet me back up at the vault. And Dexter has to go right back into that building again. So this is the next big confrontation in the episode of Prater says, I have that itch and that need now too. You helped me become the serial killer I've always wanted to be. That maybe this was my destiny all along, he says. Dexter offers himself. Kill me. Last week I joked that Dexter could position himself as, hey, I'm a shark that only eats other sharks. I'm the top of the food chain. And he's like, hey, if you get to kill me, think about that. What a badge of honor for you, Mr. Serial Killer Collector. Prater thinks about it. He says, no, I want you to witness my first non-impulsive kill, a cold-blooded murder. Prater weighs this out. Do I want to make this murder? Do I want to kill the biggest shark in the sea? Well, I can't leave any witnesses. Sorry. No witnesses would imply Dexter himself, I guess, unless he thinks he has enough leverage on Dexter. Pragmatically, he should kill Dexter first, but I guess he wants Dexter to witness this. So pretty cold-blooded on his part. And, any kind of mild empathy we might have for this character, they're trying to erase it here through these plot machinations. Dexter tells Harrison, I'm sorry I couldn't provide you the protection that I wanted to. And somehow protection, this word, reminds Harrison that when Dexter said protection before, he meant his knockout drug, which he happened to have with him. Prater does seem in that moment to actually want to kill Dexter first, which once again is the smart thing to do. Harrison takes this as a chance to inject him with this drug, which happens to work very, very quickly. I don't know anything about this drug. Maybe it does work this quickly. Harrison says, that better be the last time you told someone to shoot you in the chest. Ha ha. You remember you told me, Dad, and now you told Prater. Well, don't make a habit out of it. So now Dexter finally is like, you really, really got to get out of here. Dexter taunts Prater here, has him all wrapped up. I can make you so rich. Prater, interestingly, tells him none of this would have happened if you had just killed that cop. We could have been partners. And in a way, this is true, right? If he had killed Angel in that moment, he then could have turned on Prater in the exact same way later on, and Angel still would have ended up dead. So maybe a truly calculating psychopath would have made that calculation. Look, he's probably going to kill Angel anyway. If I do what he says, I can still kill Prater. His guard will be down because I'll be in his good graces. But he did the quote-unquote right thing and said, well, if I free Angel, maybe we can take them down together. Angel, of course, played his cards wrong. But in the end, it all works out here. He tells Prater that my dad understood what I was fated to be at an early age in my childhood. But he gave me a code, and Angel didn't meet that code. But you meet the code. He does make an interesting parallel that Prater also maybe would have been destined for all of this. He was made by his childhood, the events of his childhood. And this is one of the most interesting episodes in the season, thematically as well. The idea that Dexter suddenly had the ability of being around like-minded individuals like himself, these serial killers, this buffet of killers, as he mentioned. And it was intoxicating to be around these killers, but also to feel like seen by all these folks as well. But he realized over time that that's not really what he was after. He's after justice. And maybe that is what he gave to his son. Not the psychopathic tendencies, but maybe the need to seek justice. And justice for all. It is funny here, by the way, that Prater's like trying to play in like, I knew you'd love it. Oh, yes, I knew this is exactly what you would like. And he's not really catching on to where Dexter's going with all of this. Prater does ask him, oh, it's not about the thrill of the kill. And he goes, both things can be true. He wants justice and murder. Hopefully, Harrison just wants the justice part. By the way, down at the gala, Prater's missing and they're about to reveal the $11 million they've raised, that he's going to double to almost $23 million. Leon, where are you? He's very busy getting murdered. Dexter has his orgasmic look on his face as he kills Prater. If he wanted justice and if he wanted to tease out a murder, well, this one's been teased out all season long. He starts wiping everything down with a towel, just wipey, wipey, wipey. All the fingerprints gone. Meanwhile, Claudette is like, I am done with this. I've been waiting for Prater all night. This is back at the gala, of course. She's about to walk out the door. But of course, the big payoff, everybody. We finally get this giant payoff for Staying Alive. She's about to leave when they start playing Staying Alive. And she does a perfect spot-on, step-for-step choreography of John Travolta's dance moves in the Staying Alive, in the Saturday Night Fever, I should say, movie. This is incredibly dumb, by the way, and not a good payoff at all for this, but the dancing's great. Terrific job dancing, I gotta say. I do like the idea that this probably Asperger's-ish or adjacent character, not only does she love the song, but she's obviously seen this movie many times and has learned the choreography. Dexter, by the way, does his usual 9 parts dissection of Prater, doesn't leave any blood behind, magically. Throws it all in some garbage bags. Prater is very petite, so not too difficult for him to carry this body out. I'm not sure how that would work. Given that this guy was in a coma just a few weeks ago, seems like he would be struggling a little bit to carry this whole body out, just in a few bags over his shoulder. And of course, he puts in the wrong code as he leaves, so that the entire police department, New York City Police Department, shows up in the middle of this murder den, just as he makes the escape. Luckily, no one sees him escape because security cameras are turned off. Now, wouldn't there be old security cameras showing Dexter walking in and out, and these other folks as well? Dexter, of course, knows how to drive a boat, and he remembers that Prater has a boat available. A beautiful yacht, no less. Claudette, in the kill room, finds Angel's body. Oh, Angel, we should have believed you. You were onto something. They're just going to drop this investigation once again. Hey, there's going to be a lot of investigation here. I'm pretty sure that Dexter's fingerprints are going to be all over that house. Maybe not in this room. And that'll be pretty suspicious, especially considering that they find the weapon used by the New York Ripper and the identity because the folder was left behind to help close that case. If Claudette is this smart, maybe this is a setup that she will be onto Dexter in the next season. And he'll be like, hey, look, lady, I'm just trying to help you out. Another obvious plot hole here is the fact that Prater has disappeared and no one's looking for this yacht. I'm pretty sure someone would be looking for this yacht because it would be a way that if you think Prater has escaped from this and don't assume that he's dead, that someone's going to be looking for that yacht. But no, I think Dexter's going to get away scot-free yet again. And conveniently, nobody will come looking for him. Of course, the biggest shock of all, those aren't the shocks in the finale here. The biggest shock of all is that Charlie's mom is totally coherent. She never communicates with her when she's conscious. No, she just was napping all those times because she's like, where are we going? Charlie, where are you taking me? Well, she's running out of town with her mom. Turns out all she needed to do was sit her upright and she would have been conscious this whole time. Oh, if I didn't mention it, Angel, of course, gets reunited with his hat. Claudia, feeling bad about this. I'm sure they'll go and eat a Cuban sandwich in his honor later tonight. And the season wraps up. Dexter on that yacht. Once again, whoever's watching the yacht, whoever's the captain of that yacht traditionally, not available today, or he knocked him unconscious or something happened. The Statue of Liberty in the background. Of course, liberty and justice for all. Liberty for Dexter here, and justice as well. And Dexter says, maybe I'm not built for solitude. Maybe I'm supposed to be the family-friendly serial killer. Speaking of family-adjacent serial killers, we have, of course, Al, which was the one that got away this season. But of course, that's the folder right on top that Dexter has on that pile of murder files, or murderer files, I should say. And we see this montage, Blessing, dancing with his wife. He misses Deb. Maybe Deb is coming back next season. No Deb this season. Gigi and Harrison dancing as well. And in the voiceover, Dexter says that he used to want to have a normal life, be normal. But who is he kidding? This is who he is. He's exactly who he's supposed to be. He's exactly who we want him to be. And yes, indeed, fans of this season of this show got exactly what they wanted. A lot of fan service this year and a very fun season of show. Silly, of course. A lot of plot holes here, but this was a lot of fun. I think this season could have been even better, and I will get into all those thoughts with my conversation with Sona that we're going to jump into right now. All right, Sona, I know you have a very busy day ahead of you, so let's get right down to it. I have some questions. So first of all, last week's episode, we didn't get to touch base on that. We could talk about both of them in tandem. How do you think last week set up this week? And were there any surprises for you in this particular episode?
As you know, I generally feel like the penultimate episode is the big one of any given series. I had lost track of where we were in this season and how many episodes were left when I watched last week's episode. And I thought it was an amazing episode. I think you had to suspend your disbelief about a few things in order to go along with it. There was a little hand wavy, but still the story is so fun. And it's just such a fun ride to be on that I'm willing to do that in a way that I might not be willing to do it if I weren't enjoying it so much. You know, I'm so sorry for how things turned out for Angel, but I was surprised at how it actually all played out and how it happened. Were you surprised by that?
You mean Angel dying or?
Well, how he died.
I mean, I'm not surprised they would have killed off Angel. I guess I was. I was a little surprised they killed off Angel, although I guess he's so close on the heels of Dexter, unless season 2 would be like the story of Dexter on the run, like the Incredible Hulk, or like the prisoner. Not the prisoner, I'm thinking of the fugitive, where he's on the lam and he's got someone hot in pursuit, just missing him from town to town. That unless that was to be the premise, then Angel had to basically go because he was too close to discovering every single secret of Dexter. So I guess this was a way to have him bow out and still kind of be a hero to the show. Are you surprised by the fact that, you know, he ended up on Dexter's table? Is that what you mean?
That he ended up on the table and that it was Prater in the end.
Yes, that shot him. Yeah.
Shot him. Obviously, well, not obviously. I think it would have been unusual for anyone to see that specific sequence of events coming, right. I suppose, but it did surprise me nonetheless. And I felt like last week's episode, together with this week's episode, really did keep me on the edge of my seat as far as seeing how things would develop. I think they did a great job of storytelling. You know, I was really excited and interested to see what would happen next. I felt very tense at times. So I feel like it was a really great story, even if not necessarily a bulletproof plot, a very great story.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of questions, especially in this week's episode, as to like some of the logistics of this or the reality of how this makes sense. I have a list of questions to ask you about this week's episode. First question I have for you: this episode is called "And Justice for All." By the way, we see the Statue of Liberty in the background multiple times in the final scene. So I guess liberty and justice for all. Not sure how that all ties together. Liberty because Dexter's free. Maybe that's what it means. But my first question, more importantly, Sona, of course, is shouldn't this episode have been called "Staying Alive"?
I mean, one thing that occurred to me as I was watching this episode is we talked about how funny the first few episodes of this were. I mean, it was almost a sitcom, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it took a much more serious turn in the back half where it wasn't so much dark comedy as in the front half. But wow, was that a laugh out loud moment for me when Staying Alive played at this gala. I mean, I literally was sitting in my apartment alone and I laughed out loud.
I did also find it very interesting. I made this call out when I did the plot recap here, that in the Previously On, the very first thing we see in the Previously On, she calls out the fact that the sleeves are different sizes on her partners. And she mentions it again in this episode. I'm like, I'm so glad they put that in the Previously On, really focusing on the important
information.
Critical information for this.
I mean, they looked much more even in this episode.
I think he tried to fix them at least a little bit. Speaking of Staying Alive and the comedy elements of this, the fact that she's storming out, and then of course they start playing Saturday Night Fever, or I should say Staying Alive. As silly as this is a payoff for all of this, for this whole entire season, I think is a kind of a dumb payoff, to be totally honest.
Yes.
Her being able to do all of Tony is dance moves, perfect choreography. So just picturing this, on the spectrum, detective who not only loves the song, but has obviously seen this movie many times and has learned all the choreography. Just imagining that part of the story is very funny.
This was like so tongue in cheek to me almost
Yes.
that I almost expected a line dance to break out behind her with everybody copying the choreography, like a Bollywood number of some sort.
Yeah, hilarious. Okay, the other bigger question, maybe more important question here, we see here over and over again, questionable as to whether Dexter is truly a psychopath here, right? Brian appears to him, right? Very important point here that one more ghost visit.
I have to say, I know people were speculating he'd be back, but in the moment of watching this episode, I forgot about that speculation. And when I saw him, my jaw dropped open. I love that they brought him back.
Yeah, great to see this actor, who doesn't seem to work that much. I don't remember seeing him much recently, but fun to see him back here. And that was a real surprise for me. Like I did not expect that, even though I'd heard rumors that it might happen. But it's like as if he's questioning, hey, how much of a psychopath are you, buddy? Why are you feeling bad about Angel's death? And concerned about your son, and etc. You're pretending that you are not the psychopath that I know you are. And I guess I kind of joked when we spent some time on earlier recap episodes where you seem to bring that up multiple times across the season, and we
you just keep beating that dead horse.
Yeah. But you know what? I maybe I missed it more so than you did. It is important to the show because it's like literally the question it's asking us here. And we have it asked again in the final moments where Dexter's like, is it the murder that I love so much? He does seem to have almost an orgasmic reaction to killing Prater here. Or is it the justice? Apparently, hey, can I have both? One from each column,
I actually was confused by the ending because I felt like so much of what happened during the episode kind of vindicated me. There was so much about how he was a real human being feeling real feelings. And then at the end, I felt like he was kind of like, nope, still a psychopath.
Exactly. When he kills Prater and he has that expression on his face, it's just like reminding you that maybe it's saying it's both at the same time. He is a psychopath, but he's a psychopath that gets off on justice just as much as he gets off on chopping people into 9 pieces. I guess that's what we're supposed to believe.
I guess. I don't know. I felt like it didn't necessarily follow from what evolved over the course of this season.
I mean, I think if it had been more thematically coherent, that would be the bigger surprise. So, Sona, that is not the biggest surprise I had in this episode. The biggest shock, like literally shocking for me, moment in this episode was when Charlie rolls her mother out in the wheelchair. And I'm like, her mom's been coherent this whole time? I thought she was like in a coma or something.
Yeah, that was kind of strange.
She could have just been walking around outside with her having conversations. Like that's not the impression I had from mom at all in the state she was in.
Felt like she was talking to someone in a coma this entire time.
Right. Especially considering she's like revealing things that you probably like wouldn't want someone who would wake up in the middle of that conversation.
Well, I'm not sure she ever told her mom anything, though. She always pretended she was a teacher, right?
Oh, she hinted. That's right. That's a good point. Yeah. She was hinting at things about how she was doing things at work she didn't feel good about, but I guess, she was catching it.
I did love the reveal that she's Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown. Yeah, exactly. I also like that she's making the Pulp Fiction reference in the previously on where she's like, be cool. So I'm like, again, not an important point other than to be like, hey, we made a Pulp Fiction reference previously.
Well, also in the Staying Alive dance, there are some moves from
good point.
Uma Thurman's dance and with John Travolta. And
that's right, because of John Travolta being a connection there too. Good point. So I do find another couple of funny points here. I did like the fact that he goes out of his way to say like, oh no, I have this feelings, Angel's dead. Maybe I am, a real boy after all. And he's like, let me call up Harrison to have him come rescue me. And his dad's like, are you dragging Harrison into this? And he's like, yeah, I can protect him. So again, This seems more like, straight up sociopathic. It's like, it'll all work out.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't remember Harry being as profane as he has been in these last 2 episodes.
Yeah, the last couple episodes he's gotten, exact kind of
right,
fun.
like a lot of cursing. Has he always been that way? I don't feel like it.
Normally not. He's like an idealized version of the.
Yeah.
I actually called that out in my solo recap last week, where I said that when he was like that bitch, I was like, whoa, chill out there, Ghost Dad. What's going on? Speaking of where all the characters land here, so of course Dexter is so many plot holes here. I gotta say, so many plot holes here, right? The security camera's been turned off, fine, but are they? There's going to be records of these people coming in and out of the building from previous, unless he scrubs all the the security cameras, which he shouldn't, because God forbid, someone makes a package delivery and turns out to be casing the joint. You definitely want to have those records. Anyway, first of all, there's a lot of these people who turned up dead later on showing up at the house, very questionable. And I'm sure that's going to be on the security tapes when they start to investigate this. Second of all, Dexter somehow just wipey gets all his fingerprints off of that room. I'm sure he missed the spot somewhere. But more importantly,
yes, he touched so many things.
Everything in the room.
I totally agree.
But not only that, at some point they're going to run fingerprints on the entire mansion, and Dexter's fingerprints are going to be everywhere. And of course, that's going to lead back to Harris and then to Dexter. Maybe that is a thread that will be picked up next season, but we can speculate on next season. I don't think that's going to be the case. And of course, then he leaves in the yacht. And I'm like, does he have security for that yacht? Does he have a captain? Did Dexter knock the captain out or something? Because he's just driving that boat away. And by the way, Prater's not known to be dead. Prater's supposedly on the run. Yeah. And no one's going to be looking for his yacht. I don't know. This seems to be like a bad escape plan for Dexter. And I was also surprised that like Gigi really doesn't turn up in any way.
Yeah, and the injury meant nothing.
Yeah, nothing. They again draw attention to it because she's wearing the brace while she's dancing around with Harrison in that like montage in the final moments. But that didn't mean anything at all. Total red herring. Turns out she's just a girl in the world. And
we know exactly who the New York Ripper is.
Yeah, we do know. He's a character from previously from the series.
No. I mean, they gave us the name. We thought there was going to be some kind of mystery as to determine.
Oh, right. That would be somebody that somehow we had met at some point in.
But, a nicely labeled file folder with his serial killer name and his real name right next to it.
By the way, that doesn't also need, maybe I should say, would be another thing that would draw some attention to Dexter, that he is part of the reason that they've started to reinvestigate this mission, and then conveniently they find the weapon and the file left out for them. It's all kind of weird. So yeah, this does not hold up at all. But I
mean, and also just Dexter's priorities and getting out of that house. Like he's,
yes,
he found a bag to collect everything in. I mean, go, man.
Right. Well, I mean, he had to spend a lot of time cleaning up the place.
Yeah, that's fair.
It also seems when you look at the clock that Prater has, he's down there and he goes, hey, in 9 hours, we're going to reveal the total. So then he's upstairs. And once again, this could just be the way that it's edited together. And we're supposed to assume that he killed Prater right away and then spent 8 hours cleaning up, which is probably more realistic. But it seems like he kills Prater, and then 10 minutes later, he, draws the police's attention to the murder room.
No, my recollection is that announcement about doubling the donations by 9 p.m. is made at like 8:20. I think they showed the clock. I think it's only been 40 minutes.
Oh, really? Wow. That's really impressive.
Yes.
I thought the clock was running in the opposite direction. That would be very funny if this is just 40 minutes.
Oh, interesting. You thought it was a countdown clock.
Yes.
And I thought it was.
But I think you're right because it says 9 hours when you're done. I think you might be right. If he did all that in 40 minutes, that is impressive. Not only did
Very productive,
he bound him up,
multitasker.
he killed him, cleaned up the crime scene. He, dissected him, bisected him. He put him into trash bags. Carries him very easily, by the way. I know he's a petite person, but I mean, he still seems to be carrying this guy very easily, considering that he was like in a coma 3 weeks ago. But I guess all his strength has come back. It's muscle memory, as we've said before.
Well, also, where was all the plastic wrap? Like, I guess.
Right. They just had it there for him.
I mean, they had it to wrap Angel, I guess, and maybe they like had extra.
He found the extra.
Yeah.
Or maybe he made, he had a little bit of time. He went down to the kitchen.
Ducked out to the kitchen. Yeah.
And no one followed him back up to the penthouse. He's just like, oh, sorry, I'll be back in a few minutes, guys. Have you seen Prater? No, I don't know where he is. All of this is very funny.
I mean, that's like a whole, more than a container of plastic wrap that you would get in a grocery store to wrap up a person like that.
And how did he, think about it. He kills Prater and he chops him up. And where does all the blood go? He didn't leave any blood behind. So,
yeah.
He must have had like a giant vat or something that he also took with him that we didn't see him carrying.
Right.
Anyway, all of that very questionable here. But somehow, miraculously, he's able to do all that in a few minutes and make his escape onto the ship. And yeah, he's on his way out. And I like that whole little monologue over the final moments of the episode. I thought I wanted to be normal, but I don't want to be normal. I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. I'm exactly who you want me to be, audience. And indeed, I think that is. I mean, people loved this season.
I agree. That was like a little meta comment for us rooting for the serial killer to get away with it.
Yeah, and also being like, it's almost like the showrunners being like, you didn't want to see. We tried to kill him twice. You guys weren't happy with it. You guys love this, though, don't you? And he's right. Audiences love this.
I loved Harrison's comment. Can that be the last time you tell someone to shoot you in the chest?
Yeah, I love that too. Exactly. It's just like, don't make that your move all the time unless you're wearing a bulletproof vest, for God's sakes.
This again, Dad.
Dad, is that always your move? Shoot me right here, right here. If he's wearing a bulletproof vest, that would be a good reveal there at the end, that if he had been shot and then been like, see, I wore a vest this time.
I learned.
Right. I love that whole thing where he like telegraphs to Harrison to be like, remember when I said protection and I meant the syringe? Did you bring the syringe? Yes, he did. I
mean, good for Harrison for thinking to bring that syringe.
That, exactly. And also to pick up on Dad's clues there.
Yeah. I will say, like, I feel this was a great redemption arc for the Harrison character, who is honestly kind of annoying in the other version of this show.
Yes, this is a much better,
much more likable here.
He was. I mean, I was going to say he's also playing younger in the other, but I mean, I had speculated that this was maybe like a year later, but no, it's just weeks after the incidents of the last season, and nonetheless, he has matured a lot, I guess, along the way. New York will do that to you; it toughens you up.
It's so true.
Also, killing your dad toughens you up. Oh, in last week's episode, I had predicted most of this. I'm like, Prater has to die because he knows too much. But the way I thought all these pieces were going to fit together, this is my theory, Sona, that we were going to have Charlie was going to be around and would have access to Prater's funds, and Prater would have disappeared. Maybe people don't know he's dead, or they could just say he's somewhere doing his billionaire stuff, and they would still have access to his funds, or maybe she knows about a secret bank account. And they would be Charlie's Angels.
I was just about to make a Charlie's Angels joke myself.
See, we're right in the same wavelength. And I'm like, then who would be Charlie's Angels if this is the metaphor that next season would be like, here's your next murder file that you need to track down the serial killer, Angels. Although, Angel had survived, then he could be one of the Angels. He could be like shot but had recovered. But I'm like, who would be the Angels in this case? It would be Dexter would be one, Harrison, and maybe Gigi. That would be the three Angels.
Oh, there you go.
You got a blonde in there. You got to get a blonde in there and two brunettes.
But I had a question, too, about Prater had been funding the mom's treatment. Yeah. Now that he's dead, will that funding stop? And then does she have money to take care of her mom? I mean, I know they were going back to Amherst, but...
Yeah, she like blackmails him that he's going to keep paying for this. But of course, if even if this is like on auto pay on one of these giant accounts, he still has billions of dollars, of course. But they probably would lock up his funds while they're trying to investigate where he is. And
Right.
there's a lot of questions. Once again, the logistics of this don't really make any sense. So Dexter's going to go and like sell the yacht somewhere on the black market and become a millionaire. No one's ever going to go looking for the yacht. It would be funny if next season he actually is driving that yacht around still. Like no one ever went looking for it. But yeah, any speculation for next season? You think he's going to kill Al? Is that going to be number one on his hit list?
Oh, what a good question. I do think that's a bit of unfinished business for him.
Yeah,
So
the one that got away.
I could see the next season starting with that.
Yes.
Anyway.
That'll be like
And,
a cold
just,
open.
yeah, closing that loop out in just a couple scenes. I could see that happening. I honestly like Dexter and Harrison together in New York. I would like to see that continuation of that story, but I don't know if we will, given that we saw him driving away in a boat.
If you look through the names of the different killers, one of them's like the Yonkers something. I don't remember the details of all the names. But I'm like, I guess they could, he could be like, hey, let's just start in New York to start with, since, and maybe have another season here. And then they could also work out from there. And that also would allow like Claudia, for example, if they want to keep her in a loop, her to, close some of these logic loops where they are investigating him. Yeah. So, my son was there. I picked him up a couple of times. Yeah. So what? You got no evidence on me, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, this like kind of the plausible deniability he would have. And maybe even like cluing her in, like, hey, I can help you close some more of your cases if you want. There is a way where they can extend this in New York. I don't think they will continue to do this in New York, although it would be fun. They probably would move to another geography from season to season, I would assume. But it would be, I think they left that intentionally open, that there might be some local New York killers that they continue more with this cast. That they want to leave that door open, I think.
Yeah, I think they really have a good thing going with this current ensemble, although still mixed feelings towards Claudette for me.
Yeah, I agree. And hopefully she'll move on to a different track off the Saturday Night Live soundtrack by next season.
Maybe this can be closure for her now that she's
right.
danced to it at the gala. I feel like I understand what they were going for, but they took it a little too far.
Yeah. Yeah, true. But yeah, overall, as silly as the resolution here, and I honestly feel like there were very few surprises. Like it would have been more fun, I think, if all of a sudden they're working for Charlie in some way. She's protected in some way, and she's like, "I'll keep my mouth shut as long as you keep doing for me, and I'll subsidize you folks." Little by little, like, Harrison, and he has to kind of lie to her about what they're actually doing if they want to continue with these characters. Would have been a little more interesting. And you know what? And who knows that that's not going to be the case. Charlie is still in play. She's not like dead or anything. And maybe she does reach out to Dexter and say, hey, you're supposed to die in that room. I need you to do me some more favors. And they might even, she's good at killing too. Maybe they'll be the love match for next season. Who knows?
By the way, since I didn't get a chance to talk with you about the prior episode, how great was the scene with Dexter and Charlie in the car? That was amazing.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah, for a lot of fun. He's still trying to do the whole dark passenger thing, doing a convincing role. Although at that point, you got to figure that he's been found out, or very soon close to being found out. That's another plot gap here in logic, where you think about how close they are to identifying, Harrison's last name. They're so close to identifying that Dexter is who he is. And nobody, not the cops, not the cops making the connection to the crimes, I should say. They know who Dexter is, though, but they don't know the connection. And the fact that, for example, like, you would think like Prater obviously has connections inside the police department, that once the police department knows exactly who Dexter is, he never decided to be like, this is his most prized possession, is the relationship with this Red character. And he didn't even do his due diligence in identifying who he is. Once they have the kid, Harrison, and they know his last name and everything about him, I mean, it wouldn't take very long to figure out. what's going on. And all of that was just convenient plotting, I thought. Very sloppy.
That's what I was talking about when I said parts of it were very hand wavy. Yeah. Like I don't buy that at all.
And we think Charlie's so great at her job because she's so good at tracking people down and killing them. But she didn't even like take Angel's cell phone out of the cell. Not a great move for her. So lots of plot holes, but once again, a real blast, a lot of fun. All right, Sona, we will be kicking off our coverage of Task on Monday. I think we'll reconvene and have that conversation. The episode premieres on Sunday.
Cool.
And I have another show that you might want to cover instead of that one, but we'll save that conversation for there. Darren actually wants to talk about Task, although we're currently covering Alien Earth. And meanwhile, there is a new Jessica Chastain spy show based on a true story, which is coming to Apple TV Plus later this month. So I think that maybe we start with Task, and depending on which show you prefer, you can actually take your pick as to which one you want to cover.
Sure.
And once that premiere date comes, which is later in the month. But I think you might like that if you want to track it down. It's called The Savant, and it's based on a true story of this woman who infiltrated white supremacist groups. Her cover gets blown at some point and tension rises, etc.
Oh, that sounds stressful.
It starts the very week that Alien Earth wraps up. But I'm like, maybe the female co-host should be talking about the female-centric TV show.
Although I can't speak to what it's like to be white.
That's true. That's true. But you probably do know what it is like to be surrounded by white racist people. And being very uncomfortable about the situation.
Yes.
We'll continue that conversation in our next meeting.
Can't wait.
Thanks again for the conversation.
Thank you. All
right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.